Hi, I'm Dawn McCoy, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Dawn McCoy to the show. Dawn is a television host, writer, and the founder of Loving Way Foundation, a nonprofit that fights to end child abuse through advocacy, awareness, and visibility. It's a cause that's deeply personal to her, and we'll talk more about that shortly. Through her recurring travel and lifestyle TV segments on NBC, Dawn frequently highlights destinations, hotels, short term rentals, and more things in the travel space that she loves. Dawn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just honored to be here and to see your beautiful face.
Well, likewise, you and I first met many, many moons ago back in
Yes.
Las Vegas at the opening of the W Hotel. You were there to cover the opening. I was there working on the PR team, of course. Tell us all how you first got started in travel and TV.
Well, first of all, I want to say I loved that experience. We had so much fun. I think that we had the events, of course, that were, for the property opening. And it was just one of the best property openings, by the way. And then I remember we went out afterwards and stayed out later than I probably ever have since. And I was saying to you the other day, I have like a girl crush on Katie, y'all. Like I have a serious girl crush. I thought she was so cool and so beautiful. And so I'm glad we have stayed friends, especially through the social media world. It's been a gift. How did I get started? So it's kind of interesting. I actually broke up with a boyfriend. I was a country singer in Nashville, and my whole life it was like new chapter, and I don't even think I knew that's what I was on the precipice of, but I was Barbara Streisand's personal shopper and I was sitting in Malibu at lunch. And I was like, okay, I got to reroute my life. I don't have the guy I thought I was going to be with. I'm not going to have a family at 35 years old. I am not a super successful country singer. Everything was going to be different. And I kind of had this angel on my shoulder say, you need to find what makes you happy and what you love. Like, what is it that you love? And I made a list of everything I loved. I have no idea, too. I don't know what inspired me to do that, but I went with it. And I wrote this list, and it was like beauty items, because I loved that at the time. I was a makeup artist for years. And then it was baking and design, like having a beautiful home, pink, turquoise, travel, good travel, luxury travel, great hotels and room service. And I remember I just did this list and giving back. And it was crazy. Out of that, I never read a blog. I started a blog called Beauty Frosting. Beauty Frosting started getting really good traction. And out of that, people asked me to start hosting segments, which I always thought you had to be a pageant queen or a super big journalist like Diane Sawyer to do TV. And people said, why don't you come on and just share your favorite things? And honestly, it was the best move because I got this really loyal audience with I got this really loyal audience with Beauty Frosting. And then that translated to TV where I was able to go and share my favorite things, places, and people and products on TV. It started on Hallmark Home and Family. Then it went to Dr. Oz, I believe. And I did something on Access Hollywood. And then NBC, I really started working primarily with them in 2021, right after COVID. And so I do NBC California Live, NBC Texas Today, NBC Chicago Today, and it's a joy. It's like my own schedule, and I get to travel just through the segments a lot of times, which is fun. And I love it. I love what I do, and I love introducing people to places I love or new to me places.
Well, first of all, I want to go back and say the girl crush was mutual and still is to this day. But second of
Right.
all, what you just said is crazy, Dawn. You were a country singer, you were Barbara Streisand's personal shopper, you were a makeup artist, you were a beauty blogger. I mean, you've had so many lives and so many interests and so many passions and talents along the way that it's really cool to watch how those have fused together in both an unintentional and an intentional way. Like you said, sitting down and making the list and really curating what it is that you're interested in. And
Yeah.
obviously, one of your big passions is your home of Los Angeles, a place that you've lived for 25 years now.
Yes. Yeah.
And what's happening there right now with the fires is truly horrific. It's absolutely
It's
heartbreaking.
so
I
awful.
mean, I have a friend who has completely lost her entire home. I have other friends who are just waiting to see what their home what state their home is going to be in. And it seems like everyone we know is either affected or knows someone who is.
Yes. I mean, I know that the first night I was trying to think of everybody I knew in the Palisades. That's when we were first, worried. And I think I was thinking I knew 4 or 5 families. Like, okay, I have 4 or 5 families. And I was actually listening to my best friend that was here. And then that night I go on Instagram and it was like story after story. And I mean, I think I stopped counting at 45 families that were impacted. And, we have friends who have disabled families, disabled children. I'm especially worried for them because
Mhm.
these are houses that are outfitted to disabled children. I have a disabled child, as you know. It is so terrifying on every level. And then that just takes it to a whole other level. It feels apocalyptic. I said that. I mean, the the sky is shrouded in clouds of smoke. It's this crazy, it has like multiple colors, but it's like orange and then gray and then really dark gray, and then there will be these beautiful pockets of hope, as I call them, of, perfectly blue sky. I didn't even notice those at first, and my best friend Chris is here, and he actually pointed it out, like, "Look at that." So, it's kind of I'm taking that as a sign, like, just, hold on, it's gonna get better, but we are very lucky, and I'm very grateful. We are in the Beverly Hills adjacent area, which is like Beverly Hills meeting Carthay. We are in the red flag zone, meaning like keep your eyes out, but it is not affecting us. Mostly, we're just getting it smells like smoke in our house, and it
Mhm.
does. You definitely feel like you're in a zone where there are fires going on. But I mean, it's right now, as of today, it's 0% contained in the Palisades, and just the idea of that is unbelievable. I can't even remember the last count of how many acres it was. I want to say it was like 18,000 or something acres that were affected, and I mean, yeah, I have at least 40 something friends that have been evacuated and probably more that I haven't, spoken to or seen. It's devastating, and I said this earlier, I just really hope, I think we really need a lot of positivity, and we're seeing that a lot in the community with Los Angeles. I really said a little line in my, post I put up, which was just, "Please don't turn this into anything political. We just don't need
Mhm.
anything like that. We need to be
Mhm.
supportive and positive and just focus on that." And, it's been beautiful to see the way that the community is coming together. It's been really beautiful to see the way the community is coming together. That's what LA really thrives at. So, we're seeing hotels offering deeply discounted rates with no fees or rates that are added, or they're taking away the resort fee, things like that. We're seeing Airbnb, of course, offered one free week stay to people that have been evacuated. That is a huge gesture. And then I believe they do discounted rates after. So I love that they have really stepped up and said, we're going to do this. And then always like the LA restaurants. I mean, I always think of Jose Andres, when he did all of that amazing work. But I seeing the restaurants come together, and like Crustacean, I know, is delivering meals to our first responders, and a lot of restaurants are coming together that way. So I think I'm just in awe of LA. I love living here. Los Angeles and California are our home. I've lived here since 2000 with a 4-year break in Nashville, and I just am in love with it. And it's so beautiful. And to see it just decimated like this in certain areas is so heartbreaking. And to be a family that has survived trauma, I just know that feeling of the before and after. And
Yeah.
my heart breaks for the fact that they're in that middle part, which is the hardest part, which is like, the before it was just here yesterday, and then the after starts soon, but you're right now in the middle of just where am I? And you're just kind of in a purgatory. And my heart is just breaking. So we're trying to do all we can to help. We're working with Good Karma Studio to get donations for families. I know Loving Way Foundation is trying to help as well. And trying to support in any way, and I'm just seeing everyone do this. This isn't us being anything special. Everybody's doing this. It's remarkable.
It's
and
in the
necessary.
worst times that we see the best and unfortunately the worst of humanity come up, like you were saying with, "Let's
It's
please not
true.
make this political. Let's focus on, what is happening and what people are losing
Yes,
or what people stand to lose."
absolutely.
It's something you've seen in your own personal life, and I love the way that you just so eloquently surmised it there in saying the before, the after, and right now we're in the middle of it, and that is really the hardest part.
Yeah.
And this is really where hospitality thrives and where you see the heart come through. I love those examples that you gave. It was something I reached out to a friend of mine and said, "I know my rentals are in New York, but if you need a place to stay, come on over." Not that that's very
Oh,
helpful. And
very
I saw a
sweet.
friend who has a place in, Palm Desert, I believe. She was posting if anybody needs a place to stay. And it's true, it's so genuine when it comes from, most people in hospitality, not everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but you like to see when people really step up and come together.
Yes. Yes, and I mean, I always tell people when I meet college kids and they're like, "Oh, I'm majoring in hospitality," or I'm wanting to go into hospitality PR. I always say, "You're never gonna wanna get out of it." I mean,
Right.
everybody I know who gets into hospitality PR, even if they get out of it briefly, they usually go back to it because it's fun, it feels good, you're giving people core memories. I mean, probably on every NBC segment I do, I talk about core memories, but it's because that has really been something that saved my son and I, were
Mhm.
having these core memories after trauma. And when I see hospitality clients really step into that light and try to give people the best core memories, that's what it's all about. And that's what they're doing now. They're trying to save, they're trying to give people something to look forward to in a
Yeah.
time when you feel like you have nothing to look forward to, and that is such a powerful gift to give.
I couldn't agree more. You touched on the NBC segments that you've done. I know you've also hosted influencer trips in various destinations. You work with El Paseo Shopping District as creative director. So really so many hats you wear within the travel and hospitality space. Tell us a little bit about each and how that all has kind of come together.
I had this mentor, Penelope Francis, who's an amazing designer and was in the PR space. And she used to say, I like using all of the crayons in my Crayola box. And I love that because, I've got a lot of different colored crayons in that Crayola box. So I think that there are kind of a few different things. So we've got the first one is the segment, so TV host and getting to anytime, connect with an audience through TV. It's magical, right? We grew up watching TV and I still get really excited going on a show. I'm so not jaded. I get really excited and my energy is always really high because I almost have to pare it down because I'm so excited. And then being able to work with brands on that, it kind of brings in like when I had a blog and when I was doing a lot of social media. I mean, I still do social media work, but I get to bring in all of these different entities. So, getting to do an NBC segment and featuring, a Waldorf property and a Ritz Carlton property and a Four Seasons, and then also, featuring a Holiday Inn Vacations or a local hotel like Wild Valencia and La Jolla. It's really fun to get to create these segments, and a lot of times it is actually they're built by emails I get or pitches, and people are saying like, "Hey, we want you to come stay in La Jolla," and I'm like, "Great, okay. I wonder what I could do around this," and then it becomes an adult friendly travel segment, or I find a property because I happen to just write and say, "Hey, I'm coming. I'd like to consider you, for a segment," and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have you," and I found a wonderful hotel in Palm Springs that way, Azure Sky, and it just felt like no one else was there, but people were there, and it just was this beautiful little oasis in the middle of Palm Springs, and that's how I got that adult-friendly travel segment. It was adults only, and I don't do that a lot as I have a son, but I found the magic of it because when I had a really important meeting while there and I had work, I was able to really focus on being an adult. Because sometimes you're a mom and, like, when you leave your kids at home, I mean, there is always guilt, even if
Mhm.
you do your best and you're like, "Okay, I'm on a work trip and this is great," or "I'm going to be of service," or what have you. But when you hear kids at the pool, your heart goes, "Oh, like, I wish they were here." But when you're in
Yes.
an adult-only hotel, it's like there are no children that are there, and it's, like, great because it reminds you, "Okay, I'm just here doing my stuff right now. I'm doing this right now, and then I'll be 150% when I get back to my kids." So,
Right.
I love that. But bringing in brands and getting the ideas has been a really fun, creative, collaborative process. And, I always tell PR agencies or properties or destinations, I'm like, just reach out to me and let me know, say, hey, we have, like right now we have a food and wine segment we're working on with all these different food and wine festivals, or I think it's Waldorf Los Cabos. They're doing a food and wine component. So it's really fun to learn about these new destinations. I think in early February, I'm going to Kimpton Moss Olas, which I've talked about. They have supported Loving Way Foundation. They have been so wonderful. And I'm so excited to actually just get to go and experience it for like me. It's a really beautiful property, and they're newer, and it's a luxury property, but it also has a lot of environmentally conscious choices they make, and I love that. And they have like yoga on the beach as you like watch whales, I believe, and things like that. So I'm saying sign me up for that. I want to write my book, or at least get well into it while being there a few days.
Well, I want to go more into writing your book in a little bit, but I want to go back to something you were talking about with pitches. And I think
Yeah,
that's really interesting for people who are listening who either own rentals, own hotels, operate hotels, work for hotels, PR people. So much of what you just said is a lot of the properties that you end up featuring are because you got a good pitch. So what
yeah.
makes a good pitch? Like what stands out to you? Because I imagine you are inundated with them on a almost daily, if not daily basis.
Well, it's so funny though, because I'd say first it's just being friendly. I mean, I I am not a great person at being straight to the point. I'm from Texas. I was raised in Dallas. We're raised with charm. It's just how we are. It's like, oh, it's hello. It's so wonderful to talk to you. And I've had to learn to kind of be more succinct when I'm like, I am the queen, by the way. And I'm so sorry to everyone for saying urgent, deadline, we need this. But it's sometimes really urgent. And I have a deadline the next day and I need to hurry. When people are friendly and excited, I immediately want to work with them. So if people write back, if I pitch something and say like, "Hey, I'm doing, what did I do recently? Oh, we're doing like an MLK weekend. So we have a last minute opportunity, and like, we're looking for properties. This one needs to be under 600 a night or whatever." I love it when people are excited and they're like, "Oh, we're so excited. We really wanted this property pitch for this." And so I really like enthusiasm. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think I respond as well to people who are a little bit aloof or jaded, because I feel
Mhm.
like I can't imagine they'll have that property very long if they're like that. But I think when people are friendly and enthusiastic and appreciative, like, I love it when they write back. And I mean, I've never had anyone write back and say they were disappointed. I had one person not write back once, and I was like, "Oh, okay." But
Mm.
when people write back and say, "Wow, thank you so much. The property really appreciates it, and they really just thought you hit everything," it makes you feel really good. And so then
Mhm.
you feel excited about it and you want to keep doing it. So I think that's it. I think I'm a really joyful person. I think, words are my love language, one of them probably. And I love it when people are excited about something. I also love properties that give back. I mean, that's a huge part of, and I know we'll talk about that later, but that's a huge part of the way I operate. And so, if somebody reaches out, and especially, during, the fires right now,
Mhm.
or with our nonprofit, and they're like, "Hey, if I can support in any way, or if a property we're working with can support," well, of course I want to mention them, because they just have good hearts, and I want to support, you know, owners that have great hearts and PR agencies that have great hearts. And I love being able to support that way. It feels like a superpower you get to have, that you get to shine a light on businesses and locations, destinations, properties, etc., that have their hearts in the right place. It really is. It feels like a superpower. Like, oh, great. Let's go see if we can get you on NBC, or let's go see if we can put you on my social media audience and you get a booking through it, or a few bookings. And I love that. I mean, I understand the power of media and social media, and sometimes it's not powerful, and sometimes it is. And when it is, it feels real, real good.
Speaking of superpowers, I think one of your many, many superpowers is branding. And it's interesting hearing you talk about all the different topics that you could cover in your segments and all the different kind of lives and jobs that you had when you were first starting out in your career. Like the real multi passionate, multi hyphenate comes through so strongly with you. So, what is your approach to branding? How do you think about branding in general? What advice would you give to people who are maybe considering it for whether it be themselves, their property is, or any other aspect of life?
Well, I will say, first of all, social media, obviously, in the branding, in a branding medium is tricky now, right? Like when
Mhm.
people say they want to be a social media star or they want to have their brand get 10,000 followers, we know it's really hard, right, to authentically get that.
Yeah.
Uh, what I have noticed though is when cross collaboration on social media or in life, right? I mean, collaboration and cross collaboration is really everything. If I'll mention, for instance, like you mentioned El Paseo earlier, so I'll start there. El Paseo Shopping District. I've worked with them for 7 years, maybe 8. I'm trying to remember, 7 or 8, and I'm creative director for El Paseo. It's over 240, luxury stores, boutique stores, both local and national. You have, like, Gucci and Louis Vuitton, you have Mastro Steakhouse, you've got Saks, but then you've also got, Trina Turk, which is also national, but it, started really in Palm Springs area. El Paseo Shopping District is in Palm Desert, I should say. And, it has been a treat to work with this brand and help mold it along with their marketing team, really getting to create, new content. And the way that we started with that I thought was so fascinating is that I had been hosting those influencer trips.
Mm.
And I originally learned of influencer trips because I kept getting invited on them. And I would go with Philosophy Beauty or I'd go with Jouer Beauty, and they would have these beautiful properties hosting them and they paid the properties, but I was like, "Wait, there's something we can do with this." So then when Palm Desert reached out to me just as, "Hey, can you come consider this for a segment or for your social media?" I started working with them in a partnership capacity, i.e. a paid capacity, and then we enjoyed it so much and we saw benefit from it so much, and I guess, kind of an ROI, a good ROI, and they said, "Would you consider, helping run our social media branding and creative direction for that?" And I was like, "I would love it." So I started that. And then to see these influencer trips, they became our content captures. And so we'd invite influencers in or models or actresses or TV hosts. And over the past few years, we've just built this arsenal of beautiful photos and videos. And we have plenty to work with. And the real gift has been seeing, we have about 50,000 followers, but seeing, 1,400 followers to 50,000 in a
Mhm.
matter of years. And then seeing, um, impressions go from, or views, as they're saying now, having, 2,000 views a month to now we have, 100,000 views a month and
Mhm.
really seeing it work together. So now we build that content, but then we create the content, but we also have all of the businesses adding us as a collaborator on posts. And I will tell you right now, that's my number one tip to anyone right now is cross collaborate on your posts and your reels. Accept everything as long as it's decent looking, right? As long as it's on brand. But it doesn't have to look as perfect as it used to. I used to be very editorial with not my personal feed. I've always just been very organic and genuine in that way. I don't have time to make it look perfect and a certain color and everything. But for El Paseo, it was like a very, editorial look. And then
Mhm.
once I realized how much more of a reach we were getting by inviting in other people, I was like, this is an online community. This is a social media community. And welcoming in these other people changed the game. And I mean, I've seen it change dramatically. So that's the number one tip. Um, and then also, yeah, like I would say, don't be afraid to spend money for influencers or TV integrations, because that's one thing we do with California Live and Texas Today and all the NBC shows, is that I work in two capacities. I work on one end in organic segments, just talking about what I love, what I want to talk about, something that's relevant. Maybe it's disability travel, or maybe it's, um, I mean, I do beauty, lifestyle, and travel, primarily travel and beauty. And being able to talk about what I love is really fun. But then also, it's great when a brand comes to me, and we've had some beautiful integrations with Princess Cruises. We've had, I think, 6 or 7. They're repeat, and we love creating content with them. We did Alaska. We've done multiple cruises here. It has been such a treat because you get so much creative control. So basically, they come in and we talk about what the main talking points are. I take it to my producer, create a script, bring it back to them. They get edits, and you're really integrating. You're really getting to be part of it. And then you get final edit, like, here's the edit. Okay, here are our notes. It's a little different than a segment where I don't really have any control. You could get cut off and then I have to tell you like, "Oh, sorry." But actually, we've never had anything cut off, so that's not totally true, but we did get preempted by the Olympics, so that happened once. But it's really beautiful to get to do both because I get to be creative in an organic way and just kind of talk like me, and then, what are your talking points you want for these products or places, and that's fun. But then when it's an integration, getting to really create with a brand, and they'll say, "What do you think? Do you think this would work?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think that would work. I think we should do
Mhm.
this. Let's try, actually changing outfits and making it seem like we're on the cruise the whole time." I mean, it's been really a delight and I love it. So we have worked with Visit Greater Palm Springs, Princess Cruises, and tons more. But it has been so fun getting to work with them again and again and create new content each time. It's so fun. So I would say don't be afraid to spend money on integrations on TV and on ad boosting on social media because
Mhm.
you'll get more eyes. And I've seen it personally with everything I work with in every situation. And also be open to working with influencers and TV hosts. And also on the philanthropic side, be open to working with nonprofits that can host trips, and your properties or at your vacation rentals and work with them because you're gonna feel so good. I've never seen anyone feel as good as, vacation homeowners or hotels that host trips with our nonprofit. It's
Yeah.
literally they're like, "When can we do it again?" That's how impactful it is. Makes them feel really good.
It's so interesting. First of all, if you really zoom out, I'm hearing such a symbiotic relationship of what is good for your clients and being promoted is also good for then the viewer, then for the station, then for you, etc. And it's like really trying to find that win-win-win-win-win for
Yep.
everybody.
I love
And
that. And yes.
yeah, and working with clients who understand they need to trust the experts in their certain area. So like you were saying with Princess Cruises, them giving you their talking points and you saying, "Well, for this format, for this segment, et cetera, let's think about it in this way." And I think that's so crucial because I've seen that with influencers when hotels or brands try to control and say, "Hey, I've identified this influencer as a great audience who has a great editorial eye." And then they
Yeah.
try to control and say, "Well, can you shoot my handbag this way? Or can you take my property and show it this way?" That's not what you hired them for. You hired them for their lens and their creativity, just like you for knowing your audience and what people are going to respond to. And it's like, how do we work together? Yes, you need to understand from the client what their goals are, but
Yeah.
then you can do it in a way that is most organic to that exact segment or audience.
Well, and I think that now is a really good time. I think COVID really leveled the playing field, and I think there is no room for entitlement anymore. I think for a while, there were a lot of influencers that had a level of entitlement that was just really gross, and I think that as much as it's important to honor their creative process, it also was sometimes so entitled and, like, people would say, "Oh, but the ROI doesn't match, what we're paying them," or, if they're hosting them, usually it's both. But I do think that you have to remember that, with TV, with influencers, with actors, celebrities, what have you, it is a job. So, like, you have to remember, like, it is their time away from their family or they're taking their family, and when people ask what your rate is, I get asked that a lot, and I hate it. I won't lie, it's my least favorite question, and yet I know it, and I have an assistant, and I'm like, "Please just handle it," because I hate telling you what my rate is. So, a lot of times, I'll say, "What budget are you working with?" Because then I don't feel bad if I'm like, "Okay, well, they're on the same level as me." Um, but that's a really uncomfortable conversation, but you have to know your worth and your value too. I turn down a lot of things because, it's great to go on vacation, but I mean, it's like that adage that, Zio Ziegler said, I think, Rich, it was like, if it doesn't benefit, you know, my soul, my family, or my bank account, then it's probably not for me, and that's
Right.
where I am for sure. It has to be one of those 3 things, and I think you have to think of that for most people. Like, maybe your client has the best hotel in the world, but, like, what is it you're really giving that person? And
Mhm.
what are they gonna take away from it? Because again, it comes down to core memories, but also if they're missing core memories with their family to be there, then, what is that too? So I think that we're seeing influencers be more grateful and celebrities be more grateful, and I think people are much more gracious. Um, And I think now they're working really well together in a more symbiotic way, speaking of that.
You've touched on the changes that have happened within the social media space, going from really editorialized to a bit more less polished, let's say. And I definitely
Ah,
see that and echo that as well. The difficulty in growing an audience numerically and the fact that you were able to do so for Help a Sale from 14 to 50,000. You have quite a large following yourself on social media. What other tips, in addition to what you were telling about collaborating on reels and not being afraid to invest in paid ads to get to in front of the right people. What other tips would you give to people who are trying to build an audience in that space?
it is really funny. I mean, I hope my friend is in the other room listening to this because what is crazy is I just learned a lesson this week. Like I've been in this game of social media since 2012 and literally on Sunday I have learned such a lesson since then. In fact, I'll pull this up and check it while I talk to you. So I was watching the Globes and, our my son, being disabled, he's, 5 years old, and we have a big disability community. One of our dearest friends is in the movie Wicked, and she is disabled, and there's this real beautifully warm world right now to disability on the whole. But, I mean, we have lots of challenges. So, Sebastian Stan did an acceptance speech, and he did this speech, and it was like, I don't know, it's a 15-second video or something, and I recorded it and I shared it with literally, I thought, you know what, I can take it down later, but like I have people that'll want to see it. So I'll just put it up as a reel. It is the most popular reel I've ever had, and I had no intention or I mean, I had the intention of sharing it with my disabled community, and I literally was like, "I'll take it down later if nobody cares or whatever." Has 221,000 views since Sunday. It's been shared like 500 times or has 800 saves. It has like 5,000, 6,000 likes, and it just keeps growing, and I just keep seeing people share it, and I'm telling you, I literally am going, "What?" So, I mean, the first thing I would say is social media is totally arbitrary. And if you calculate things too much, I see all of these influencers that are so like calculated and want to build a brand and like they're taking classes. And I'm not knocking people that do classes. It's just I don't really see those people doing like it doesn't succeed as much because it's really more now, it's like the more authentic you are and the more raw you are. I mean, I don't love it when people cry to camera because it seems like
Yeah.
now it's something you do all the time. I think I've probably done it before though, so I'm knocking that either. But I think everyone is wanting some realness and they're
Mhm.
wanting things to come from the heart and not from what's great for the algorithm. I do not pay attention to the algorithm at all. I am terrible. I have a photographer who I love work with all the time in Greater Palm Springs. And he's like, "Yeah, I only do this for my feed because of this." And I'm like, "That is all BS." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "That I'm telling you, like, people will tell you this, but then you'll see my Sebastian Stan video take off and
Yeah.
it's, recorded from a TV." And I mean, so I think the biggest thing is trust your instincts. And like, if you think, wow, this is really good, like
Mhm.
this needs to be heard. Don't worry about the algorithm. Don't worry how it's gonna look. You can always take it down later. Just put it up. I mean, I learned that lesson now. I have put up really vulnerable videos of Waylon, and in hopes that it will help someone. And you know what? The thing I always have said when I get a hit to do a video or to post a reel or to share a story or to share something a little deeply personal, without fail, there's at least one person that reaches out. It's not like those posts where it's like, "Everyone's asked me if, what lipstick I'm wearing." I mean, in my experience, not everyone, no one ever, like, it's never everyone that's asking me, but if there's 1 person or 5 people or 10
Yeah.
people that write me messages and say, "Thank you so much. I have a brother who was abused," and sometimes it helps me more than them even. Like, they're sharing a story that I need to hear. So I think it's really important to trust that instinct and trust your intuition in life, but with social media, like, share it.
And for every
When
one person who reached out to you, think of how many people still might have been touched by what you shared, but didn't reach out. I know you and I were chatting the other day, and you shared with me that your father has dementia. And I said right back to you, my mother has Alzheimer's. And right away, it was this kind of moment of like, man, everyone's got something going on, right? And the
Yes.
second that, like, you
Yeah,
kind of share and open up and kinda give that vulnerability to
yeah.
somebody, it helps us all feel less alone because it's like, "Oh, Dawn's dealing with this too. She'll get what I'm going through today."
It does, and it's a wild ride, and I mean, you and I, we talked about it and laughed about it a little, and you said, "I'm so sorry to laugh," and I'm like, "No, you." I mean, I have laughed through trauma. It has gotten me through unspeakable trauma and grief. And with my dad, I shared that and I was really nervous because there are other people involved. I have a brother who is not like Mr. on social media. He's a professor, and I have a mom, and my mom and dad are divorced, but she's kind of involved again now in terms of trying to help, and they're more private. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to share this, but it was really good I did. I got so much feedback and so much help, and I don't even think that was my intention. I honestly think I was saying like, "Hey, I'm disappearing a little bit about it sometimes because I'm having to be in the throes of this." I'm the one that's working with him directly in every way. I'm working
Yeah.
with him with his financials, I'm working with him with his appointments. I think he I think I speak his language in dementia world a little bit in terms of like I'm very patient. I think that's
Mhm.
something I don't know if everyone would know that, but I feel like I'm a good daughter for him right now. Um, and it has not always been a smooth sailing relationship. He's a tricky, tricky guy, for anyone. I mean, he is a one in a trillion kind of person. And I realized that my son, oh, I'll cry. Navigating this world and this life with my son being disabled and a traumatic brain injury survivor, and then navigating the world of dementia is very similar.
Yeah.
And I had this one day, it was the first day I had seen my dad since I knew how bad everything was, how advanced it was. And I went to Dallas, and that morning I started out with doing my son's physical therapy and trying to help him, learn stepping and like putting his feet down and touching the ground and telling him left and right. And like, that's how it started. My day ended with being at Saltgrass Steakhouse, telling my dad the same thing and
Mhm.
walking him through the restaurant and going, right, left. That's right. Okay, keep going. You got it. And
Yeah.
being that cheerleader. And I felt the magnitude of that moment because I had started that day and ended it. And I'm like, how many people get that experience? I mean, it
Mhm.
was, it was, it was, it was shocking. And I think that sharing that experience with people and realizing I am not kidding. Any message I got, I feel like it was every 1 out of 3 messages, and I did get a lot that day. That is not saying everybody wrote me. I'm saying a lot of people
Yeah.
wrote me though. And every 1 out of 3 were like, "Oh, my dad or my
Mhm.
wife or my stepmother," and they all had different stories, and I'm like, "This is rampant." And elderly care is such a horrible role to navigate. It is
Yeah.
We do not take care of our elderly, and we do not have things set up, and we aren't teaching people how to prepare for later in life and for, dementia or any kind of ailment. And I mean, we're really failing, right? We're failing, I think, as a society in that way. We're not preparing the elderly, we're not preparing the people who will be the caregivers, and our society is not prepared. I mean, they don't have things in place. Everybody shirks responsibility. It's like the doctors want to shirk responsibility because of liability. The police want to, they don't have the rights because we have personal rights. So it's really learning that we've got to advocate once we've gone through any kind of trauma, whether it be elderly care or my son's situation or whatever. You have to advocate once you've gone through it, or else we're never going to change it. We're never going to affect change if we don't start advocating and helping other people, as painful as it might be for us to rehash it again and again.
Ready to future proof your business? The Future Laboratories consumer foresight and trends intelligence platform, LSN Global, just got smarter. Introducing Ember, a new generative AI tool. Ember transforms LSN Global into your personal foresight research team. Faster, smarter, and more powerful than ever before. LSN Global connects you with the trends, data, and insights shaping tomorrow's business landscape. And now, with AI enhanced research, it's your trusted intelligence partner. Head to lsnglobal.com/membership to book a demo or become a member today and try the beta version of Ember. Research has never been this seamless. When I first started this podcast, I started to reach out to a lot of former colleagues and friends, much like yourself. And a lot of times the first question that came up were, "Oh, I didn't know you were back in New York." And that would easily lead to, I left London because my mom has Alzheimer's and I needed to be here to help her and to help my dad. And just like you're saying, once I shared that, the response that I got back from everyone, every single person has something going on, whether it be, a sick family member or trauma that they experienced. And, as sad as that was to hear, it also, like we said earlier, first of all, made me feel less alone. And I love what
Yeah,
you're saying about advocacy, because the more that we sit in silence with it, the more we feel isolated by it, and the more nothing changes. And there's so much that I know now, going through what I've gone through with my mom with Alzheimer's. And just like you're saying, like, how do we prepare, our homes, our finances, our wills, our
yes,
powers of
yes,
attorney, all these things that if we had done this when she was healthy, we would be in a much different situation than we are now. And by sharing those things and opening up to one another, we can prepare other people to be in a better place than I was. And not to compare my situation by any means to yours, but I
totally.
really felt that full circle moment that you were talking about with your dad and with Waylon, with my daughter, and, her being, now she's 2.5, almost 3. But when we first moved back, she was just under 1. And the kind of caretaking of needing to feed her, of needing to bathe her, and having to do those same things for my mother felt like
Crazy. It's
cruel
crazy.
and funny and
Yeah,
horrible and all of
yeah,
those things at once. So just, and then last thing I wanted to touch on is what you were saying about you really being that person for your dad right now. It makes a lot of sense to me, because the trauma that you have been through and that you have really triumphed through in an impossible situation, which let's talk about that now. It makes you a different person, who is someone who doesn't hide from these hard conversations and these difficult times. And I've seen it in my own life with, immediate family, extended family. People don't want to talk about these things. And the amount of people who will say to me, "How's your mom doing?" And if my answer is not, "She's great," it's actually, "She's not doing very well. And we're really struggling right now. And, all
yeah.
these things are going on." 9 out of 10 times people don't respond after that, because it's a difficult conversation. They don't know how to navigate it. So,
Yeah, totally.
transitioning into the serious topic, you created Loving Way Foundation after your son Waylon was abused by someone he should have been able to trust. And I
Mhm.
know you're in the middle of an ongoing criminal case right now, and that there are certain things that legally you will be unable to speak about. But tell us what happened, what you can anyway, and how Loving Way Foundation was created as a result.
So in January of 2020, my son was the victim of a traumatic brain injury. And yes, it was by somebody he definitely should have been able to trust. And as a result of that, he is blind from cortical vision impairment. He is disabled, has major developmental delays. He does not walk and does not talk. He's 5 years old. I always say yet because I'm very hopeful. He has epilepsy and at one time, was having over 100 seizures a day. He I hate always saying all of his diagnoses. I mean, he's been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. He's been, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's so much to even remember. And what I think of when I think of my son is not all that. I think of, he is joyful and he is happy and he is peaceful and calm and really I can't explain it. He's magical. I mean, literally people will hold him and say a journalist friend of mine held him for the first time. She doesn't even love children, as she'll tell you. And she held him and was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I just got a massage just by holding him." His energy is amazing. But when he was hurt, I remember being in the hospital, and when I found out who it was, I was I wasn't sure what the next step was gonna be, and I remember telling him, "You are the hero of this story. There is a bad guy, and there is a hero, and you're the hero. So, you're gonna hear about somebody named Batman someday, and you're basically like Batman, and I get to be your Robin, and I get to be your wingman and cheer you on." And it has been like that since the very, very beginning. And he and I have had an incredible bond even when I was pregnant. And he's been the same since energy wise, since my pregnancy on through now. He has just always been this calming presence. And, people ask sometimes, do you I mean, listen, we get some horrible questions. I don't love this question, but they'll say, "Do you feel like, he's a different baby? Like, do you feel like you have the baby before and after?" And I'm like, "No, I feel like he's the same baby. It's just he's kind of a different version." I don't dwell on the who he would have been, could have been, might have been, what he's missing. And when I say I don't dwell on it, it doesn't mean I don't visit. And I always will say I visit that place. I allow myself those questions because if I don't allow myself those questions, I'm really doing a disservice to myself. But if I allow those questions and I go, okay, this, yes, he could have been this. He may have been a piano prodigy. He may have been this. He may have been a huge chef one day, and maybe he won't be able to do that because he doesn't have any motor skill. And I'll cry and I will sit there in it, but I try to get out as quickly as possible because it does not help him, does not propel him forward. It does not make us happy, and it is not who he is. Like who he might have been has nothing to do with who he is, right? It is part of him, but I will not let the monster win. And that is what I've tried to teach from the beginning, not just to Waylon, but when we started Loving Way Foundation, the whole point of it was I felt so alone when this happened, and I had no one to talk to, and I had no reference, and I had no person to call and say, "Hey, how does disability work? And can I go to these criminal hearings? And can I do this?" And I just had to navigate it and figure it out myself. And I look back and I looking at myself on the floor, unable to stand out of pure grief and trauma. I look back at that girl and I'm very different now than I was then. But she figured it out, like she figured it out. And if I can't figure it out and then make it easier for the next person, then what was this for? I
Right.
mean, I really I am somebody who believes that there has to be a bigger picture. There has to be a destiny, a reason. I tell Waylon all the time, we have this mission together. You never should have been hurt. There is a monster who is evil and cruel that hurt you. You never should have been hurt. People were not educated enough to identify what child abuse looked like. And we looked a certain way. And so nobody thought that's what it could be, which is a whole other topic, Katie, for
Mhm.
another day. But this mission we have is greater than the pain of what happened to us because he doesn't think of himself as having a painful life. Waylon doesn't think that every day is a challenge, even though we view his life as so challenging. So if we can accept this mission that we did not sign up for
Mhm.
and know that we're in it together and help other families, which we have and we do, and I am so grateful for, and it saves me as well, then it was not for nothing that this horror happened. And what we have done so far is just provide joy for these families and really not just provide joy, teach them that you can find joy after this horrible thing. After the number one thing that you feel like you should do as a parent is protect your child.
Mhm.
And when you feel like someone broke your trust, broke the trust of your child, then a lot of people feel like they failed and they find it impossible to find joy. And the thing is, you didn't fail. It was a psychopath who did this. It was a sociopath who did this. It was someone who got really angry and handled their emotions incorrectly. Whatever it was, you are going to be better than them and you're going to find joy again. And we won't let them win. It's always that, right? We won't let that monster win and determine your future and your joy. So we started doing these loving way respite stays where we call them loving way stays, where we send families on trips like we got to experience because of my work during COVID 2021. And we'd go stay in a vacation rental for a week because I was going to talk about it or share it on social media or whatever on TV. And I would see my son come alive. I'd see him float in the water and I realized, oh, my son loves water. I mean, the discoveries you get, not just the core memories with your children on vacation, and within yourself are so important and so lasting. And the fact that we can do that for other families is just such a gift. It's just such a gift. And then, yes, we have to work through the hard stuff too. So we have them going on trips, which feels great. And like getting to be there for them sometimes is the best thing in the world. I mean, we just sent a 7-year-old survivor to Disneyland after the sentencing of his offender, and she got a life count sentence. And it was the best feeling in the world. I mean, it feels like I'm going to Disneyland, when I get to go and see it in person, it's like electric. And then having this family, and I just shared a reel recently on my Instagram and everything where it was, you know, the amazing Anderson family, and, he's a fighter pilot, and she's, an amazing mom, and their little son, Levi, was hurt by someone he should have been able to trust, and we had this trip at a luxury vacation rental in Palm Springs, Pretty in Pink. JP Flynn worked with me on it. He's my producing partner out there, and they had this amazing 4-night stay, and the kids, like, we filled the rooms with toys, and we found out they love balloons, so the whole house was filled with balloons, and I mean, my friend Kelly Lee, Kelly Golightly, she is out there, and she's a big Palm Springs personality and a lovely friend, and she came to help blow up balloons, hundreds and hundreds of them, and at one point, at the end of it, I mean, we were all just shook, and after we left the house, she was like, "That's one of my top 5 life moments." Like, marrying my husband, my niece being born, and this is right up there, because honestly, it's like that kind of human joy you get to experience that you don't usually get to experience in this life. And then also the experience of going to court and getting to sit there and see someone sentenced who is evil. I
Mhm.
mean, and I don't take the word evil lightly. It sounds, I mean, listen, when you get to try to be a beacon of good and you try your best every day, which we all should be doing, but we definitely feel like we have that mission. You're also very keen on teaching people evil is out there, what evil looks like, and how to spot it.
Yes.
So I dwell on the joy. I do try to teach about the evil part, and we help other people find their joy after the impossible. Because again, it is that whole before and after. It's like before you're living one way, this trauma comes in, everything is turned upside down, and you don't know how you're going to do it. Just like what all of our friends are dealing with right now in the fires and their house is burning down. I'm like, ugh, I know, not the same thing, but your life gets burned to the ground, whatever it is trauma wise, that's
Mhm.
really intense. And what do you do next? And I just always try to tell people, like, you're going to have joy again.
Yeah.
That I can promise you, you will have joy again. And I will say that thank God for being able to get away. Thank God for being able to lean on people. Thank God for good hospitality as of all things. Like, thank God for places that welcome you and welcome our disabled families with open arms and give them memories, just by donating their hotel or their property or an experience. I mean, Visit Greater Palm Springs worked with us beautifully on this trip in August, and then a wonderful company. I've got to say this: Academy Travel, the Disneyland, Disney World experts. They came in, they donated the trip to Disneyland. They helped us get VIP treatment for little Aiden. I'm just in awe of what we get to do, and it is not what we get to do, it is what we get to do. And when people come in and work with us, I can't explain the gratitude. I can't explain. I My heart grows exponentially every time, and I feel like, I'm on my way to feeling like, a Disney character, because I just feel so much joy. Even going through horrible darkness, I think there's
Yeah.
just so much joy and goodness out there.
And I hope that everyone who's listening who has a hotel or a short-term rental is going to reach out to you immediately after this and get involved in Loving Way Stays. I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
I want to be involved in that for sure. But thinking about what you're talking about, it's so important when we think about travelers with disabilities and like how we can support them and their families because like you said, people like yourselves, people like the families that you work with have been through incredible darkness and people like what they're experiencing in the fires right now and giving people that opportunity to feel that little sliver of hope and get to
Yeah.
that after and not be in the middle of that trauma is so powerful. So
It's everything. It's
what
everything.
have you seen, like, traveling with Waylon that you're like, "Why doesn't every hotel have this?" Or, "Wow, this place has X, and that has made our stay so much better." What are the things that people can be more mindful of when they're building future hotels or rentals?
I mean, I'll start with just society, but also staffing. I think, the number one thing is when people open doors for us, I'm so grateful. And I know you probably know that even with a stroller, right? It's like when somebody opens a door when you're a mom with a stroller, you're like, but when it's like a wheelchair or you've got tons of luggage and, when people offer, like, even on the airplane, when I'm having to load in the car seat and come back and get the stroller, and
Yeah.
usually, I'm not kidding, always a woman, never a man. Just sorry, but it's true.
Come on,
Oh, can I
guys.
help? Can I hold the bag? Like, what can I do? It's always wonderful women, who have either been moms or, like, I mean, I've made friends that way that I stay in touch with. Um, it's it's really thinking for like ahead, thinking forethought. So like if you have bellmen, like teach them they need to open doors. I mean, this should be a standard, by the way. I think it's actually like, a thing. But I think that really just being courteous and just know too that do not reserve those in-room treats just for VIP and press. Like if you have a disabled family and you see that on there, do something sweet for them. Like, why the hell not? Like,
Right.
just do something nice. That's a big part of living way is I take all this VIP treatment I've gotten over the years and all these amenities, the welcome amenities, which honestly make my stay like you get spoiled, where then when you get somewhere and there's not one, you're going, "Oh," like, they don't care. But, I mean, and that's not the way you should think, but I make sure that there are welcome amenities for every one of our families because they may never have it again, but I want them to feel that feeling of, "They're really happy we're here." So just any little thing you can do to think ahead and make them feel good and wanted is beautiful. Also, I think that I will tell you the word and this actually isn't, like, the worst hospitality experience I've had, but with disability, I've learned that I don't wanna take Waylon to a new city without going first because I went to New York with him and it was horrible. Like, I mean, we managed it, but I mean, he was still a two-year-old or whatever at the time. But, like, the nicest hotels in New York, they didn't have their lift working. So I'd have to find someone to come help me with the stroller and, like, the cracked sidewalks and I mean, but they aren't prepared for disability. And
Yeah.
I really question if I wanna take him again for, like, the tree lighting because he can't see, but he might see the lights, and I really have these dreams of going there, but I remember it being a challenge. Now I loved Central Park and I loved other things, but it really took a lot of doing and it took a lot of effort and the drivers aren't super nice there. I mean, like, it was like we had a lot of bad experiences where I
Yeah.
was like, "Man, this was really kind of exhausting." Um, I think that when people are kind, it's just everything. It's
Yeah.
just everything. And, Palm Springs is great with disability. The state of Wisconsin is really great with disability, I've been told. Like, they have, the paths they create on the beach that are wheelchair friendly. And so it's like this tarp-like thing they put on over the beach to be able to have the wheelchair go right down to the water. I mean, just thinking it isn't just our world and the disabled are living in it. It's that it's our world and we need to make it disability friendly. And I think that I was not like that before. I'm sure I was not like that before. But now I can't not be like that. And I get very enthusiastic about that. I mean, we had a restaurant experience lately that was very disheartening, and they wanted to seat us in a different room because Waylon was making like little cute noises that I love and I encourage it because it's talking. And it's one of my favorite restaurants of all time in Dallas. And they wanted to seat us in a different room and they lied and they said they didn't have seating in the room we always sit in. And I was like, uh-uh. And Mama Bear came out and was like super advocate. And I was like, this is ADA. You're actually, you're breaking a law. Like this
Yeah.
isn't allowed.
Well,
And
you're breaking
you
a law and you're being a, I don't know if I can say this, an asshole.
I mean, really. Yeah, and what was great is I will tell you that PR, I wrote them on Instagram because listen, I will use my Instagram handle and you can, get nervous when I write you. I don't do it. I've never had to do it before. And I just wrote, "Hey, I need your PR or marketing to call me, your media
Right.
relation." And they're like, "Oh, well, can you tell us what happened?" I'm like, "Nope, just have them call me." And they did, and I will tell you, they took the Hugh Grant approach. They fell on their sword and they're like, "Oh my goodness, this shouldn't have happened. We're so sorry." And she's like, "I have disabled parents." And they handled it beautifully. They
Yeah.
handled it beautifully. They ended up sending a gift card. I remember the manager didn't even like buy the meal, even though they acknowledged the waitress or the server, I mean, the host had lied and everything. And it was really, it broke my heart. And then at the same time, they handled it so well in the end. I really appreciated it
Yeah.
and they apologized and they're like, "Let us know when you're gonna be there." And I think they learned from it. And I think that's the thing. I didn't take it to media. I didn't blast it on social media. If it's not constructive, I'm not someone who's gonna do that just to be mean. But
Right.
I said, everyone's like, "Who is it? What is it?" I did like share a general story about it and didn't say where it was. And they're like, "Well, boycott it." And I was like, no. I'm like, if
Yeah.
this can be used as a teaching experience, it's gonna help a lot more people. So I
And
I
let's hope
don't
it actually is, and not that they jumped because of your following and who you are, and that they would have felt that way no matter who it was. I have a cousin who has Down syndrome, and we experienced the same thing when we were growing up. It's better now. She's also older now, so it's a little bit different. But when we were growing up, I still vividly remember the restaurants who made us feel other,
oh.
and it sucks.
Yeah, whole other. It does suck. It really it does suck, and you're also missing such an opportunity. Like, you're
Yeah.
missing such an opportunity to have amazing, loyal, patrons because I mean, I tell you, when people are kind to us, A, I shot it from the rooftops, and B, we'll be back again and again and again and again. So kindness to me, if you can't get it, kindness is everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. And if you don't do that, you fail at everything else.
Yeah.
Period.
Earlier, you mentioned about your book. So I want to ask a little bit about that. And in general, what's next for Loving Way Foundation?
I mean, I think the book is, we have to share the story at some point of just what happened and how we got through it, right? We have to share that. I don't look forward to it. I've been working on it for years because I'm a journaler. I'm a diary person, and I I want to share it because unfortunately our story has to show the world what child abuse looks like, and it needs to show how you can find the joy on the other side of it, right? I have to do that. But it does feel like a little bit of a sentence. It doesn't really feel like a choice I'm given. It's more like, this is what I have to do.
Mhm.
So I think I'll be really relieved when it's done and out, and we can finally talk about what happened in a more specific way and in a way that will teach. I mean, I went to a conference recently for abusive head trauma, and it was like being with my people. I'm like, let's go change the world. Let's get abuse. Let's get where you can spot abuse. Any doctor knows what it looks like. Any mother knows what it looks like. Any caregiver knows what it looks like. Parents know how to vet their caregivers and anyone that's going to be in the house with their children. People can vet their spouses or their partners and make sure that, everybody is on the same page. There is just so much work to be done. And I'll be honest, it's a lot of times because of the other. It's people thinking, well, that wouldn't happen to me. It's
Right.
it's a lifetime movie. It doesn't happen to me.
Mhm.
Or that happens in that community or in
Mhm.
that racial group or that socioeconomic group. And that is a lie. Like child abuse does not discriminate. It works it happens in every single group. It's just the wealthy are better at protecting it, and like they know how to lie about it better, they can hide it better. Um and then people with psychopathy, I mean, our people with psychopathy can get away with a lot. And I'll tell you that's the next step too is this justice system is so flawed. I I have been brokenhearted by our justice system, and I plan to do everything I can to I'm just going to put it really and on an elementary level, like plan to fight the bad guys and support the victims they hurt, because right now we have a very defense friendly world, and it is the defendants get a lot of the rights and they get so much um, leeway and so much grace, and the victims and their families are there's very little respect and there's very little communication. A lot of times I've had to teach families, go get your DA's phone number and email, talk to them, be able to communicate, because the victims and their families help the DAs build better cases. The DAs can make the families feel like they're not being neglected. And I think it's just so important. The legislation I hope will get to change after this, where we have stauncher sentences for violent offenders of children, especially and the vulnerable. I mean, I put elderly children. I mean, I even go so far as animals because a lot of times people that abuse animals will abuse children and elderly. Um, we've got to have more staunch sentences. We've got to have better bail conditions that actually protect society and don't just protect defendants while they're awaiting trial. Anyway, I'll talk about this all day, so I will not go on. But there's a lot to say and a lot to work on, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot to say and a lot to work on. And, Loving Way, I mean, our mission continues. Our mission is to support our victims, the child abuse victims and their families, their foster families, their, um, their caregivers, their therapists, their doctors, and really give them the support they need to find the joy. And then also in life, anywhere. And also give them support as they navigate the justice system, because having to go through a trial is one of the most stressful things in life. It
Yeah.
is in the top three, and it is merciless. So, whether it's like we do little packs, like, here we have tissues, we have squeeze toys, we have sensory. I mean, we have things that support these families, things we realized that we needed. And so we have that on a small level that's like, for $50, you can get help with this. But then also having the trips as this thing where I mean, not one of these trips has happened and the family hasn't said it's changed their life and given them new joy and helped them believe that good things will happen. And to see the after of that has been, greatest joy of my life besides my son. It's, who knew that something so, I mean, really out of a horror film, like something so horrific could lead to something so beautiful and make both Waylon and I feel like we have such purpose and such direction in the world. This
Mhm.
isn't the direction I was headed in. This wasn't my goal, but you know what? I accept it and I feel honored to step into that.
Yeah. And with seeing the power of the loving way stays, I think you also have some plans for Palm Springs, you hope in the future, right?
Yes, your big long-term plan.
Yeah.
I really hope our I want to say it's our 3-year plan, but it could be 5-year. We want to have the Loving Way home out there and we want to have a Palm Springs home that we want to have it be a show house event. We have so many designer friends and I have participated in show houses myself being a tastemaker designer or whatever. And we've got Christopher Kennedy out there. We've got JP Flynn, who is an amazing vacation rental designer. He is like the king of branding houses. I always say that's how it started, is because of him, because he's that spectacular. Call him the wizard. And then we've got, Kelly Lee, and we've got all these friends, and we want to create this show house where we get to have our families stay all year long. It will probably also double as a vacation rental. We've got to, all the permits and everything, but the nonprofit gives us some room to do that. We can host events there with branded events with all the brands I work with. But the big thing is our families will have a place to stay. We can choose how long based on the schedule. We can do all the special things we do and fill it how we want to fill it and have, help that is right there in Palm Springs. And we kind of are in the early stages of like, let's look for a house. Let's see if we have an investor. A lot of times there'll be someone that wants to get the house for people. And I'm really hoping for that. Um, Somebody that really gets what we're about and is like, "Yeah, you know what? I need to buy a property." And we're like, "Great, that'll be perfect." But who knows how it's going to evolve, but I feel it in my bones it's going to. And once it does, we're hoping to host, I mean, gosh, I would love it if we could host, 50 families a year,
Yeah.
60 families a year, or if we have people that need respite and they need to get out of a dangerous situation, we can have them stay there. I mean, I just look at that and that is like what will be our legacy to me, that loving way and what we're doing. I mean, also because we kind of have a branch of the disability world, like getting to have our events for our child abuse victims and their families, but invite our disability community. I mean, you don't understand how isolating, I mean, actually you do because you had an experience, with Down syndrome, but you don't understand how isolating it can be. And when we host these events and we invite our disability community as well, the mothers tell me, like, you don't understand. I never get invited to anything. My son
Mm.
doesn't get invited to anything. So, I've always been very inclusive. Even in high school, I was like always the nice girl. And I was like going, if I saw someone who was disabled, I was like, I'm going to be their friend. I really kind of went out of my way in a probably annoying way, to be honest. I'm sure I have some friends in high school with disabilities that would tell you, like, she could be really annoying. But I really I really love that we have that ability to invite all of our community and give them those moments. And like, yeah, every Halloween you get to go to Halloway at Mr. Bo's Pumpkin Patch. Thank you to Merritt Lawford and MMLPR for starting that, who's on our board. Um, and then, every November, we're going to have Disco Ability, which started this year, which is a dance party for my son's birthday that benefits Loving Way, but it's actually more just for the community. I mean, just getting these in place feels so good and so right. And it makes something that was the worst thing that ever happened to Waylon or I or anyone we know. Because at the time, everyone would tell you, like, it's the worst thing I've ever heard. Worst
Yeah.
thing I've ever heard. Um, to be able to take that darkness and turn it into light, bright light, is just a gift I didn't want, and yet I fully embrace and accept.
So, listeners, we have our task ahead of us and YouTube viewers as well. Let's turn Dawn's 3 or 5 year plan into a 1 year plan. Get in touch with her. Let's figure out how to make it happen. There is so much
Yeah.
hospitality brilliance listening. So, let's
Yes, yes, yes.
definitely make that a
Please
reality. Dawn, you're just
reach
such
out
an
anytime.
inspiration. You are that bright light after being through an absolutely unimaginable situation. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you the last three questions that I ask everyone. That's all right with
Okay.
you. And
I love
first
it.
is, what was the best hospitality experience you've ever had?
You're gonna hate me because I can't name just one. I would say I had an amazing time with Ritz-Carlton Bachelor Gulch, and that was just an amazing experience. That was Bram and PR, and they treat, their journalists and press so well, and it was just such a warm hug of a stay. Four Seasons Maui, I have the most beautiful memories. I, worked with them on their Four Seasons, Wine and Food Classic, the first one, and I mean, everything, there were treats every day in the room. It was such a community. I was sad to leave. I'd made new friends that I'm still friends with. I mean, that was remarkable. I think also Belmondo and Encanto, I have beautiful memories of that. I did a solo stay and that was lovely. So again, it goes down to that kindness and really thinking ahead, paying attention to detail and not just paying attention to detail, but also like what will make, you know, that particular guest feel special. And I know also there's a wonderful group called, I believe it's Terming Ends in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a group. And I mean, they went above and beyond for Waylon. They brought everything. They had John Rutledge in, and we stayed at another one I'm just forgetting right now. And I mean, it was gifts, and it was a personalized pajama because they understood he loves to fly. And I mean, those little extra steps and paying attention to the people that are coming, not just when they're VIPs and not just when they're a TV host or whatever, but when they're, someone with disability or someone, I mean, just give them that bright spot. Why not do it? I'm not saying it has to be everybody, but I'm just saying, like, it's so wonderful when you guys do that. It just makes it so special.
And on the opposite side of that, what was the worst hospitality experience you ever had? And I imagine that restaurant is up there.
I mean, listen, it is. It is. I would say, and again, there's two here. One is, it was actually a loving way stay, and it's really unfortunate. I had said, oh, I really love your property. I want to feature you guys on a segment. We actually have a family. They want to go to this city. I won't say what it is, and it was so difficult. They made it difficult every step of the way. They forgot things. Now, luckily, our family had no idea. We covered it so well. They ended up coming in and making it happen, but even having to call, the whole lines were ridiculous. People had, I mean, emails, too many people were in emails and people were missing things. It made it a really, I was really annoyed about it. I did not end up ever sharing them in a segment, even though I loved the property when I visited because they handled it so poorly. And I just felt like, this wasn't a hosted thing. This was actually us. We paid for part of the visit and it was just really disappointing. Um, it was just communication errors all around. That's what that was. And then the other one was, oh, I feel bad saying this. I got invited on a glamping experience and it was built up too much. They
Mm.
built it up. Oh, it's going to be this amazing thing. And there's luxury, accommodations and there's this. And it was like an air mattress and it was super shady. And I remember they're like, it's a curated chef dinner. And like the dinner was terrible. And it was like, a barbecue. And then it was the wine ran out. Nobody had any wine. And I mean, the porta potties were so disgusting. I can't even
Ugh.
talk about it. Everyone was so ready to leave the next morning. I think some people left. Oh, and you had the bumping of Coachella going on. They had not thought about that Coachella was right there having an after party. And I just remember thinking, and it's a pet peeve I've had even when I dated, is that when someone builds something up and like, oh my gosh, it's the best restaurant you'll ever have. It's best, best, best. And if you can't hold up to that, then don't say it's gonna be the best if it's not gonna
No,
be the best. So I think that was probably honestly the worst experience I had. It was
it's
just
that
so built. Invitation looked beautiful, everything was beautiful, they had a playlist, it was like, I mean, I felt like we were slumming. It was not a good experience.
the ultimate overpromise, underdeliver.
100%.
And final question for you. What does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, any person, any brand that you think has truly mastered it?
Oh, so many, really. And I've learned so much. I think it's made me a better host in my home, but I think I think that good hospitality is again paying attention to details and like what the individual needs. And then also thinking about how you can go above and beyond for that guest and thinking outside of the box for it, right? But but also to me, like when I think of vacation rentals, for instance, when I first started working with JP Flynn and the properties he manages, he really would advise, like he worked with Acme House Company in Palm Springs and he had great suggestions. And then he works with these other companies now, Wanderlux, um, is an amazing vacation rental company. And it's like you walk into a home, they've got music playing, the blinds are up, you see the windows, you see like, wow, I'm on the golf course. I've got this, when I go into a room and the curtains aren't open and they're shut and it's dark and there's no music and I'm like, man, you're really missing an opportunity here because this is the welcome, right? This is the star moment. It will never get better than this. And I think that JP Flynn in Palm Springs does that excellently and really advises his clients. I think Ritz-Carlton I don't think anyone would argue with that. There's a reason why they're who they are. And Four Seasons does it beautifully. Oh, also Heyday. This Heyday house we went to with Lodgewell, a wonderful company in Austin, and Shireen Fisher, who is the founder and owner of Lodgewell. What they do for their homes and for their guests is beautiful as well. Um, it's people who are good people who want their guests to create core memories and have these lasting memories and then tell other people about it. So I've seen it a lot in the vacation rental space.
Hmm.
And when it's done well, it's done really well. And when it's done not well, but I mean, when it's done well, again, Lodgewell and JP Flynn and Wanderlux, they do a great job.
Well,
They do a
Dawn,
great job.
it's always such a joy to be with you. You are just the epitome of resilience, a beacon
Oh,
of hope, and
had to
just
be.
the most kind human. So thank you for
Oh,
being here.
thank you so much. Well, you are just a lovely light, and I'm so excited to see you doing this. I am so proud to be on here, and I look forward to all of your shows. I can't wait to introduce you to people I think need to be on because what a wonderful space you've created. So
Oh,
congratulations.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, it's time for today's sweet summary where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. Speaking with Dawn feels almost like an out of body experience. How can someone who's faced unimaginable pain and the most horrific of traumas still radiate so much compassion, joy, and kindness? She shared a powerful insight that will stay with me. Turning pain into purpose is what drives meaningful change in this world. And for her, achieving that after all she's endured is nothing short of extraordinary. We spoke about the before and after of trauma and how the most painful time is when you're in the middle. Unfortunately, much like the residents of Los Angeles are right now as they deal with this heartbreaking tragedy. Dawn emphasized how true, genuine hospitality can make a real difference, especially at times like these. Whether it's the local restaurants that are delivering meals to first responders, or hotels and short term rentals that are opening their doors to displaced families. She highlighted the importance of giving people something to look forward to after they've experienced indescribable loss. That's the mission behind Loving Way Foundation, and more specifically, Loving Way Stays, leveraging hospitality operators to provide families with the gift of joy again after they've truly been to hell and back. Dawn also educates various businesses on what it means to support travelers with disabilities. As she said, it's not just our world and the disabled are living in it, it's our world, and we need to make it disability friendly. Overall, when I look at Dawn, I'm just blown away by her resilience, by her ability to maintain her optimism and light, and to use those magnetic forces to affect change and support others going through their toughest moments. Together with Waylon, she's accepted a mission they never signed up for, and they stand fearlessly beside others to ensure that the monsters never win. For the families she works with, I'm sure most would agree that it's always darkest before there was dawn. And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media at Sweet Success Podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.